We're watching two big storm systems in the week ahead. One being an atmospheric river event that's going to pummel the West Coast with very heavy rain and high winds. The other is an upper level low that will really get its act together across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley and into New England, dumping some snow and some beneficial rains for that area. So let's take a look at the satellite picture. On the North American view this morning, you can see this low really starting to deepen out here across the West Coast, and that will only intensify as we get later into the afternoon. And you can see the first stream of energy that's going to push into a good part of Washington and Oregon and Northern California. And then we have a second piece of energy that's going to trail behind this one. That's also going to impact areas of the Pacific Northwest and into Northern California, where they're going to just get crushed with very heavy rain. And further off to the east, this is actually the remnants of what was Sarah. And that's going to bring some moisture back into the southeast, eventually into Florida. That's also going to connect with this upper level low up here across the Canadian border this morning. And that's the system that's going to traverse across this boundary right here, bringing some snow and some beneficial rains for that region. So if we look at the satellite picture, you can get a better feel of what we're talking about. Here's the rain coming inland with complements of the remnants of what was Sarah down there into the Caribbean. And then that's dumping some heavier rain, some light to moderate showers this morning across southern portions of Mississippi, getting into Alabama, into areas of Georgia, back into the Atlanta region. And then there's the snow that's flying across areas of Canada and even some into the Dakotas. It's all rain in Winnipeg, but that's as that system dives across this boundary right here, that is going to deepen into a strong upper level low that's going to be increasing some winds and some rain across that region. So if we look at the cyclonic features, you can see these mid-latitude cyclones really, getting its act together. You've got one that's up here across the Dakotas into Minnesota, back into Wisconsin. And then, of course, you have the bigger one out here across areas of the Northwest. That is what's going to be bringing the atmospheric river event into the Pacific Northwest, especially for Northern California. Very concerned about some intense winds reaching that area and some just very torrential heavy rain. So mudslides and landslides are going to be a huge issue across that region. So the winds are going to be high. So you got the low pressure center forming and deepen off the West Coast, and that's just going to push those higher winds inland as that low pressure gets a little bit closer later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. So those winds are going to be gusting over 60 miles an hour across Washington and Oregon. Eventually it's going to impact Northern California. And then we have that upper level low feature across the Dakotas. That's the system that's also going to bring some higher winds across the Dakotas, eventually into Minnesota. And then as this shifts further southbound, that's going to bring the winds along with it. So some of these wind gusts could easily approach 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. It's definitely not out of the question. Even some isolated areas even higher than that. But nonetheless, those winds are going to be strong for the next 2 days across this region into the Great Lakes, a good part of the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic, and eventually up here into the Northeast. So you can see it better on the jet stream of what we're highlighting there. Look at that, folks. That's a 951. You can know that's pretty intense. Low pressure center that's just going to push this tropical moisture out of the Pacific and dump it inland. And some of this could be some torrential, intense rains. The water precipitation values are at extreme levels for this area, for this time of year. And this is going to be a big event for the West Coast with very heavy rain. It's typically feast or famine for them. And unfortunately, it comes in with a vengeance. Too much, too fast, and that's going to cause flooding concerns, the landslides, the mudslides, and of course the higher elevations will get, crushed with very heavy snow. And then we've got the low pressure center that's going to be highlighted across areas of southern Canada. That's going to drop through the Great Lakes. At the same time, we're watching the moisture from Sarah move inland. and then combining with this upper level low that's going to bring the beneficial rains back into the Northeast. So this is definitely a welcome sign, especially along the coastal areas where they just really haven't seen much in the last 6-7 weeks time frame, but they are going to make up for it. So in the satellite picture, we can see on the surface map, see what we're talking about. By Wednesday afternoon, we've got the remnants pushing now into Florida, portions of the Carolinas. We got the snow flying across the Canadian border. That sneaks into the Dakotas, more areas into Minnesota. And then, of course, we've got the powerful upper level low that will bring the atmospheric river event into the West Coast. And this is just the first of another system that's going to be trailing back behind it. So you've got a series of storm complexes traversing across from west to east. So you've got the cold core with this upper level low on Thursday across the Ohio Valley. You've got dry conditions across the middle part of the country. And then you got the cooler anomalies with the atmospheric river event that's going to be pushing in across the Pacific Northwest and eventually swing into Northern California. The second system actually might swing even further south, more into Central California, and some of those areas will start to get heavier rains. So if we look at it on the surface map, and as this deepens, we're not talking about a lot of snow, but it's definitely going to be some snow that's going to be flying across this region. We're talking about areas in northern Illinois, areas in northern Indiana, Ohio, especially there in West Virginia, into portions of Pennsylvania, and then of course the higher elevations into the Northeast, and then of course along the coast will just be all rain, but definitely some beneficial rains as we extend during the Thursday night time frame heading into Friday. And you can definitely see the sharp gradient of what we're looking at, just dry conditions across a good part of the Southwest, the middle part of the country. We've got the atmospheric river event that's going to pummel the West Coast. And then, of course, the low pressure center that now will be setting up shop across New Jersey. That will be bringing the wraparound moisture and some lake effect snow aspect of it too, because these lakes are plenty warm, and it doesn't matter with the wind direction. You get the right wind direction, you can add up those lake effect snowfall totals pretty quickly with this system coming in on the backside as this still deepens across this region into late Thursday, heading into Friday. So by the time we head into your Friday time frame, the snow will be flying. Again, we're not expecting much, but you can definitely see where the 540 line is, drops all the way down into the Carolinas. That's usually a sign, or where the freezing temperatures are. Anything north of that are likely going to be freezing, and of course it's going to be cold enough to snow across areas of New England. So you can see the temperatures on Friday morning. Definitely a cool down for many as this comes across, and it's got to hit that sweet spot right around 30 degrees for it to allow it to snow, and because it has a lot of moisture available with it as well. And as this moves across, you've got upper 20s and right around 30, right at the freezing mark across this region. But of course that's the morning time, and the chill does sneak a little bit further off to the south as well. But overall, what it looks like by the time we head into Friday night, of course, the temperature is warm during the day. All that will be changing from the snow in the morning time to the rain in the afternoon, as it'll be adding to those rainfall totals. And then as the atmospheric river event comes across the West Coast, it definitely increases those rains and the high winds across this region as we extend into Friday night, heading into Saturday. And much of the middle part of the country is actually going to be dry for a good part of the week, if not the entire week ahead. So as we look into Saturday, this is kind of what it looks like on the upper level winds. You can see the second system as it comes in, it's definitely going to be pushing a little bit further south. So I think that's when most areas of Northern California, get into Central California, start feeling the effects of that second system coming in with very heavy, intense rains, torrential rains at times, and that could lead to flash flooding, definitely some landslides and mudslides to contend with. Very concerning with the high winds, the trees uprooting across this region. So yes, definitely be on the lookout for some pretty intense weather across that region over the next 3 to 5 days. And as we move into Saturday, there's the warm up again, folks. So all it really takes is a south wind. As soon as that south wind turns around, you're going to heat up big time across the middle part of the country. So yeah, now we're talking temperatures, 10, 15, 20 degrees above average again, as we head into your Sunday, November the 24th time frame, especially across the middle part of the country. And I think that it just extends into Monday. So it's going to be, you got the cool shot of air during the middle of the week, going to be dry. But as the winds start to come around, especially on Friday, heading into Saturday, going into Sunday, this is Monday, the warm up is going to be felt. And some of these areas could approach in the 70s, if not almost 80 degrees, especially there in Texas, up here into Arkansas. So you're going to definitely feel the warmth coming back with a lot of sunshine and the warmer temperatures, of course, this time of year for November the 25th time frame. So if you break it down, there are cool shots of air, but they don't really last too long. So overall, it's still going to be above average for a good part of much of the southern plains, the central plains, much of the Ohio Valley. They are going to get that snow at times, but overall, it's still going to warm up over the next 7 days on an overall average. But you can see some colder air starting to build up into British Columbia and back into areas of the Pacific Northwest. So it is going to be above average this week. There are some signs that some of that colder air may finally start to release down into the lower 48 during your Thanksgiving week, but we'll be fine-tuning that as we get a little bit closer. But for this week, yes, middle part of the country, we're not expecting much of the desert Southwest, much of the South Central Plains are going to be bone dry. The big events are going to be out across the West Coast with one, if not two, atmospheric river events, and you can definitely see the bullseye there into Northern California. Yeah, we could be talking double-digit totals, folks. So very concerning. This is over a 5-day period that we are going to be looking for rain starting today and then heading all the way through your Saturday time frame. So definitely be on high alert out that way. But all those heavy winds are going to be approaching that area. And then the torrential rains, and then of course the snow and the higher elevations. And then there across as we get into the east area, there's the remnants of Sarah that'll bring some rains back into the area of the southeast into Florida, and that will combine with this upper level low that's right now up into Canada that will traverse across this region through the Great Lakes, through the Ohio Valley, into the Mid-Atlantic, and up into the Northeast. And you can definitely see even 1 to 2 inch totals are very, very welcome across this region where it's just been bone dry as of late. So here's the snow that could likely fall. Most of this will be in the higher elevations across the Intermountain West, back into southern Canada, and then as the low will start traversing across, again, we're not talking about much snow, but still a large system that's going to bring high winds, some beneficial rains, and some snow across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, especially the Appalachians there in West Virginia. And then as we get into the higher elevations into Pennsylvania, through upstate New York and into New England, we are going to be seeing some snow across that region as well. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.